officer saying January 2024, Miss Misescu had long gone from the business. It wasn't her decision. It wasn't her. The point was not put to her, will you put an EPOS system in to nullify this? She wasn't given the opportunity to put that right. It was those who were running the business at the time. I believe.
Sorry, Mr. Gibson. In the answers given by Ms. Mazescu to the letter dated the 30th of August 2023, it seems that in response to question 28, is there anything else you want me to convey you've not already stated? Ms. Mazescu says, yes, after taking appropriate advice, I have implemented the EPOS system.
I'm glad you raised that, Councillor. That was in response to questions issued on the 21st of November 2023. And if you look at the answers, what is your full name? Mr. Fanica Misescu. What is your home address? Miss Misescu does not live at 516 High Road, London.
So this is an impersonation of Miss Misescu.
I've asked Miss Misescu this direct question. She's here tonight. She will answer it, I'm sure, directly to yourself. She has never answered any of those questions herself. Miss Fanica, would you like to confirm?
Yes, I'm here. No, it was not me that was doing that form, so I don't know what it's about. I was not there.
Can I ask Dale or Mr. Balakrishnan? Presumably these are received via email.
The letters were posted. Initial letters were posted to them, and then the follow-up, when no response was received, was sent. I went to the shop and managed to get an email and a phone number, and I sent the invitation and the set of questions by email.
And were the responses received by email?
Yes.
Do we know the email address?
Yeah, I can check on our database and I can.
It's very useful to know, because it seems an imperative to understand whether that is Miss Misescu's email address.
I'm not sure we're going to be able to correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Levitt, sort of share an email address on this in a public meeting. Do you have a view on that? We don't normally share physical addresses, so I'm not sure if we'd share.
Chair, there are addresses and email addresses in the pack.
I think this is Mr. Balakrishnan's address, right? It's not. I don't see Miss Mozescu's email address in the pack. Perhaps I'm missing something.
There is, and then the others are officers of Harrogate Council, so that may be the differentiation there.
So I don't know, Mr. Levitt, if we're allowed to verify which address these came from, or if this would.
On the one hand, yes, it's personal data, but on the other hand, the circumstances as such where an exemption, it seems to me, would apply. It's not criminal proceedings, it's not even civil proceedings here, but if it is necessary to clarify, bearing in mind that the email address is either that of Ms. Misescu, or is alternatively that of somebody impersonating Ms. Misescu, I think in either event, I don't think Ms. Misescu would object to. Well, she could be asked whether she would object to it being mentioned in public, but it could be that it could be dealt with in a less public way. But I don't think she would object at all to an email address belonging to somebody who was impersonating her being disclosed in public. I think Mr. Gibson would have to answer as to whether he would be happy to have that email address disclosed, or on behalf of his client.
Thank you, Mr. Levitt. Ms. Barrett, did you want to come in on this point of the email address?
No, it wasn't about the email address, Chair, no.
I see. Ms. Mazescu, Mr. Gibson, do you have a view on whether you'd be happy for Mr. Balakrishnan to check which email address this email came from and to state the email address? Otherwise, if you have an issue with that, perhaps Mr. Balakrishnan can email round the email address privately to the councillors on the committee, so we can take a look at that without announcing it on this call, because this is a public meeting that will be available for viewing. Mr. Chowdhury, did you want to come in?
Just maybe a couple of things to consider, perhaps. Firstly, even if the email address is not the premises license holder's email address, it is unclear whose email address that would be shared in public there, and I don't think it's possible to. Well, actually, it would be possible. I think you can share the email address as a document, but then obviously that would need the agreement of everybody of the subcommittee. So I think that could possibly be done. So that is an option, actually. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury. Ms. Barrett, you're on mute, Ms. Barrett.
Sorry, I know we're talking about the email address situation, but I think the fundamental concern or the issue here is, Miss Mazescu remained as the named license holder throughout this whole period. At no time, did we as the licensing authority receive any information or any application to make any changes to the license to remove her or anything at all, really. So in the eyes of the law, she remained the responsible person, the responsible named person as the premises license holder here. Yeah. And I think that's fundamentally what we have to be dealing with. I am happy for the Trading Standards Officer to let me know what email address is, and I think I am trying to avoid, because I'm mindful that this is a recorded thing, and I'm trying to avoid having to go too far in saying or mentioning the individuals that I think have been party to all of this. But yeah, I think we just need to go back to basics and bear in mind that Miss Mazescu remains the premises license holder throughout.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. That is clear to us. Mr. Chowdhury mentioned the point that perhaps we could put the email address in a document. Is that potentially something that Mr. Balakrishnan could share with Mr. Chowdhury, and the committee members can see it without sort of announcing an email address, a private individual's email address on this call?
Yeah, I can do that. I can send it to Dahlia Barrett and Mr. Chowdhury.
Thank you.
The actual email I received.
The email address.
Okay. The actual email is his response to the PACE questions after various promptings from him. So I was, yeah.
We've seen the email. We just don't know who it came from. Mr. Gibson, and then I'll come to Councillor Small.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say much the same thing as you've agreed now with Trading Standards Officer. This can be resolved, but privately. It doesn't have to go onto the public domain. It's my belief. I listened to what Ms. Barrett had to say, and yes, we've never made any pretense to say that Ms. Mazescu is not the premises license holder. She is. She didn't transfer that. She made an error in doing so and has been, I guess, exploited for it. But there is such thing as a significant person running the business, and I've been involved in where it's not necessarily the premises license holder who is taken to task, but it is that significant person who is clearly shown to be running the business, is responsible for the operation of the business. I would ask that Ms. Mazescu comes back into the business and normality is returned, parity is returned, where all these whatever has been going on in her absence, ultimately in her name, goes away, because the history shows she doesn't operate that way when she has been in control of the business. Save for, and we were holding our hands up here, there was an underage sale made on the 10th of August, I think it was. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Councillor Small?
Thanks, Chair. Not to reopen this, but just if the sharing of the email is being done privately, it is actually, in my view, of no benefit to the committee members unless we are able to cross-reference it or to discuss it with Mr. Gibson and Ms. Mazescu of whether they have access to this email address and so on. It's no use to us seeing the email address because we can't verify who's the owner of it or the use of it. So perhaps if it isn't possible to be able to share that in the forum, then we shouldn't go down that avenue.
Thank you, Councillor Small. Mr. Lev, I'm going to go to Councillor Corley Harrison first if it's on the same point. No, Mr. Levitt?
I was going to say that the problem here would be disclosing to members of the public not directly involved. So I'm wondering whether we have an email address from Mr. Gibson. This is a document that purports to have been sent by his client. I can see no obvious reason why it could not be, why the email could not be shared with him as well, and that would then give the opportunity for us to refer to the email address rather than x@y.com. And so we could be dealing with it, the public facing what is visible to the general public is not going to be sensitive, but we will know what we're talking about when we're talking about the email address in question, and that's something that can be tested in that way without needing without running into the problems that have been raised.
Thank you, Mr. Levitt. So I think the idea here is that Mr. Balakrishnan would circulate the email address to Ms. Barrett, Mr. Chowdhury, the councillors on the panel, and Mr. Gibson for us to see, but we just don't want to announce it on a public call because
exactly.
it's a private person's email address, and even with this email address, I think it's going to be difficult to verify who is the real person behind this email address. Councillor Corley Harrison.
Thank you. I mean, just on that point, of course, the Mr. could have been a typo at any point in the response, and therefore the response could have been sent, for all we know, because we were unable to verify any of that, or indeed who is on the call tonight, I suppose. But I just wanted to come to one of the points that you made in your email, Mr. Gibson, which is in relation to the 3-month suspension. And to quote, you say, given the DPS will be varied to install an experienced licensee who will be able to quickly implement the necessary controls, there is a strong argument to suggest no suspension is necessary. I find that difficult to square, really, because as Councillor Small has laid out, there were a number of issues in relation to the period where she was the DPS. And so I really would like you to justify that statement as to suggest that were the DPS to just be switched back, that effectively what you're saying is all the problems will go away, everything would be absolutely fine, when we've already identified that there were issues when she was the DPS, because that is one of the main points of contention in your statement of agreement or disagreement, really.
Thank you, Councillor. You say there was a number of issues. I think we've established there was one issue, and that was the actual sale of the underage Elf Bar the sale of the Elf Bar to an underage person on the 10th of August. Everything else took place after Ms. Mazescu had left the business. The requirement for the EPOS system only was requested either in November of last year or January of this year, depending on which date we take on board. Ms. Misescu left the business in September 2023. So the one carryover was the fact that, yes, she was in charge of the business when the underage sale was made by one of her staff members. Anything after that that you have in the documentation is documented took place after Ms. Misescu had left the business.
I would like to understand whether you think that an experienced license holder would overlook the transfer of DPS.
It's a difficult one to answer, Councillor, because it's, as I'm sure you're aware, it's what I spend my working life dealing with, and it seems like it's like breathe in, breathe out to me, but it obviously to other people it's not. Perhaps Ms. Misescu could enlighten you as to what happened at that point and why she didn't believe the transfer was necessary. She told me she believed by relinquishing the control of the DPS position, the person who is in day-to-day control of the sale of alcohol, and then signing more or less signing over the control of the business to a third party in return for a deposit of sale, that she had done all she needed to do. We can argue the rights and wrongs of it, and clearly it's wrong, as I've said right from the start. That was a big mistake she has made. I was not aware at the time this was taking place. I just received a request to do a DPS variation, which I did. Ms. Misescu, can you add to that?
Yes, that's true.
Councillor Cooley-Harrison, do you have further questions?
No, I'm not. I think that it's going to elicit a different answer. No.
Thank you, Councillor Cooley-Harrison. I do have a few questions. So my question is, how did Ms. Mozescu come to know Cornelia Kotlogoof?
Sorry, did you ask
Can
me?
you?
Yeah, did you ask me?
Yes. How did you come to know Cornelia Kotlogoof?
From someone. I know her from a friend. He wanted to buy the shop, so they run it together.
Okay, and given everything that's happened with this business, why did you decide now that you wanted to be the designated person once again?
Sorry, can you repeat again?
Given everything that's happened with this particular premises, why did you decide now was the time for you to once again become the designated person for this premises?
Because Daniel, he wanted to buy the shop. So after that, because the police said no, they refused, for him to take away the license. He said he doesn't want to buy it anymore. So I'm again in the business. I have to, because they left. They are not in the business anymore.
If I can assist, Councillor, my understanding of this matter is in September this year, I was approached to carry out a transfer of the business to a business called Universal Food Shop Limited. I think Ms. Barrett has said that Daniel Steg, I can't pronounce the surname, I apologise, was going to be the premises license holder. He wasn't. It was going to be in the name of Universal Food Shop Limited, and that's what the application was in. They had put forward an application to transfer the license. Subsequently, this review application was bubbling along in the background. And because of the negativity that's come out of that, what Ms. Misescu tells me is whoever was going to buy the shop, be it Daniel, be it Cornelia, be it whoever, have pulled out of the sale. So she's left high and dry. She wants to sell the business. She wants out of the business. She wants to look after her family. So in the fact of somebody pulling out of the sale, she has to protect her asset. And she has come back into the business on a short-term basis. As I said in my submissions, her mother is going to look after her children for her until such time as she can find a credible buyer to buy the business, and then she will get out of the business. Is that correct, Fanica?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Councillor Small?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm, when the original licence was applied for in 2022, were Miss Cornelia Kotlagut and or Mr. Daniel Stegariu involved then with the business?
My belief is no. At the outset, they were not. They were not part of the initial operation. Fanica, can you assist?
No, they're not.
So it was just Miss Masescu who was in charge of the business when the original license was applied for.
Yes.
That is correct. She was the premises license holder and the DPS. I carried out the application for her myself.
Yes.
Okay. I'm slightly puzzled by that because it's the premises is Sophie Ma. The company that is then transferred over in 9 months later is Sophie and Co Limited, which exists with as Daniel and Cornelia's business according to Company's House. Is it just coincidence that the name of the shop and the company it's then transferred to 9 months later are the same?
Yeah, it's just a coincidence.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Small. I have one more question. So when you acquired this business, did you buy it from someone else?
No, I just opened myself.
So so this premises was not a licensed premises when you acquired it.
No, it wasn't.
So you were the first person to hold a license for this premises.
Yes.
I understand. Thank you. So, Mr. Balakrishnan, do you have any questions for Mr. Gibson or and at this stage?
No questions to Mr. Gibson, but can I sum up, or is it later on?
So we'll yes. If you have no questions, we are going to move to final points. So, Mr. Balakrishnan, you can start by summing up your position.
We just heard from Mr. Gibson that the license is going to revert back to Fenka. As trading standards, we have no confidence in that. The premises wasn't run properly under her stewardship. She, I think, from investigating this matter, was just a figure or the proxy. There were other people behind her running the business. They were getting up to every illegal thing that they could get away with. It just happened that we carried out the underage sale and the illegal cigarettes. And that was actually intelligence obtained by other traders on the high street and even as far as Bruce Grove. And that's the reason why we targeted this particular shop. So in other words, I have no confidence if it reverts back to this person. If on her watch, an underage test purchase was successful. And although she says she had nothing to do with the illegal cigarettes or even selling the other cigarettes, we feel, what was she doing? She was the person on the license. Does it mean that anybody can have their name and give it subcontract to somebody? Well, that is not acceptable to trading standards. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Balakrishnan. Mr. Gibson, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. You've heard from both myself and you've heard from Ms. Masescu this evening, and what we've never said, we've said from the outset, is she has made a big mistake. She should have transferred that license back in 2023, and we wouldn't be sitting here tonight. Well, she certainly wouldn't be sat here tonight. It didn't happen. The rights and wrongs, it's history. It hasn't happened. But what she's trying to do is protect her asset until it can be sold. There is no evidence to suggest that the premises were run badly when she had it before. Had there been so, your trading standards officer would have included that in his representation, I'm quite sure. We had the underage sale, which I'm not trying to downgrade. Underage sales are very, very serious. They happen, but one underage sale does not result in a revocation or suspension of a license. And as the trading standards officer was quite generous in saying that they were happy to deal with it as a caution as long as an EPOS system was installed. Now, that's one of the conditions that Fanica has agreed to, that will be installed should you be minded to allow her to pursue her business. And she will go ahead and do that because it will be a part of her condition. She couldn't have done the previous one because she wasn't aware it was asked for. Nothing of this came to her. You've heard from the Trading Standards Officer that everyone he spoke to at that premises, either in person or on the phone, was male. Fanica Misescu is not a male. She's been used in this respect. And to say that she is a front for other things going on and was before the transfer or before the DPS variation, there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever to support that. It's hindsight and trying to match up the dots in a very, very imaginative way. There is nothing to say that that was the case. And Chair, I would ask that you look at this objectively, allow Fanica the opportunity to protect her business, sell it on, and move out. She's the one who's, first of all, she's the one who's made a mistake, but she's also the one who's been wronged here because a lot of things have been done in her name without her knowledge. And I would ask you to take that into consideration and you allow her to run her business. In terms of a suspension, as was brought up by one of the councillors earlier, a suspension is not to be used as a punishment. A suspension is to be used as an opportunity to take time to put your house in order. It's not a let's punish you by 3 months. It's a proactive thing. And in terms of that, I don't think 3 months is necessary. I've said in my notes that no suspension would be necessary. You might feel different, Chair. You might feel we need to close this premises for a week or 2 weeks or whatever to give them the opportunity to make sure everything is right. That would be your prerogative and that would be fine. But Chair, we're looking at the long-term situation here with this business, and I believe this business is in good hands. Fanica has run this business, she's run other businesses as well, and done a credible job in each one that she has. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. So after this meeting, the committee will now deliberate on our decision, and this will be provided within 5 working days of the meeting. So on that note, I'm going to bring this meeting to a close, and I'll ask the councillors and the legal officer to stay on so that we can deliberate on our decision. Thank you, everyone, and good evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Good evening. Thank you.
Good night.